The photos that come out of an iPhone still blow my mind. These are the photos I've shot on an iPhone after dialing in the camera settings and testing in different environments around the world. But this is what my iPhone photos used to look like before I changed those settings and the way I edit. So in this video, I'll show you exactly how you can achieve this style of iPhone photography, the camera settings you need to change right away, how to best edit iPhone photos step by step, and simple tricks that instantly improve your shots. And this tutorial works with any iPhone from the last 5 years, so let's get the most out of your iPhone's cameras, starting with the important settings to change. First, you're going to disable lens correction, and this is on by default, and it automatically alters the edges and crops ultra wide images, which is not actually what we want. So to do this, go into settings, then scroll down to camera, and then scroll further down to lens correction right here. So make sure that this is turned off. And now what we get is the full unaltered image without any cropping, and we can always change it in post if we want to. Then above that, at prioritize faster shooting, make sure that this is also toggled off. So this will lower the burst capture speed in exchange for slightly more quality and detail on each photo. Since the goal of this video is to get the highest quality photo from your iPhone, you want to disable this. But if you do often take photos of fast moving objects like cars or animals, you're probably better off leaving this setting toggled on. And then scroll further up and you will find the setting view outside the frame. Now switch this setting off. And basically this turns the outside framing into pure black. So that way you can see exactly what's in frame and what you're shooting. And after playing with both settings on and off, I personally find that it is more convenient just not viewing what's outside the frame, so you can exactly compose the photo how you like it without any distractions. Next, if you have an iPhone with fusion lenses, we actually want to disable this, and I'll explain why in a sec. So scroll down into Fusion Camera here and tap into this and actually toggle off 28mm and 35mm. And before you freak out and wonder why we're disabling lenses, many people don't actually realize that these are just digital crop zooms, which means it takes a photo on 1x, then crops in automatically, so we're technically losing resolution and quality with these lenses. You're actually better off taking the same photo in 1x, then cropping in later yourself. So I highly recommend sticking to the fixed focal lengths. So depending on what camera you actually have, it's usually 0.5, 1x, 2x, and 4x. 8x is also currently a sensor crop. So by sticking with the fixed focal lengths that I just mentioned, you'll get the crispiest, cleanest photo possible on your iPhone. Next is actually a setting that we want to disable if you're conscious of privacy on your camera. So head back out and go scroll down to privacy and security, then go into location services and actually scroll down to your camera app. And here you want to actually disable to never. So if you are privacy conscious, this will remove the location data from the photo if you ever share it online or with others. But if you are traveling, it is actually helpful to have this setting toggled on for travel organization and to improve photo searches. So it's kind of up to you for this one. Okay, now let's move on to the settings to enable or update depending on your current default settings. So starting back in the camera settings, scroll down to under composition. So here, tap into indicators. With indicators, you want to enable everything here. And essentially what this does is it shows you all the tools that are being used on your camera whenever they're activated. I just find that useful to know. And then go back out. And then under composition, ensure that grid, level, and mirror front camera are all on. These are crucial camera tools that help you get a more intentional shot by giving you the rule of third grid and a leveler to ensure that your shots are straight. As with the mirror front camera option, I always like to have this toggled on because if you shoot selfies or videos on your front camera, this matters because you get more natural framing and consistent composition, but turn this off if you don't like the flipped look for whatever reason. Also, one of the newer camera settings to absolutely switch on is the lens cleaning hints right here. So one of the most common mistakes is not cleaning the lens before taking a photo or video. It completely ruins the sharpness of the shot. So this nifty setting here will actually remind you when the lens needs to be cleaned. And also while we're here, just above is macro control. Make sure that this is turned on because I also believe that this is off by default. This will give you control to manually disable or enable macro mode for those close-up shots. Then next go into preserve settings, which I believe was above here somewhere, right here. And then this is what you want to toggle on. You want to basically toggle everything to be preserved with the exception of exposure adjustment, night mode, action mode. So now if we open and close the camera app and go back and forth, most of the settings will be preserved, which helps give your photos a consistent look. But the 3 settings that I asked you not to preserve usually change often, like being in different lighting or day and night. So we don't want these settings the same every time we open up the camera. Also, scroll down to live photo here and make sure that this setting is toggled on. I'll share important camera techniques that actually use live photos later in this video, so make sure that this is on. Now, if you have a Pro model iPhone, definitely turn on Pro RAW, even if you don't always use it. They're a much bigger photo file that retains a heap more detail and can be the difference between a dud shot in dark lighting you'll end up deleting or a one that can be saved and actually looks amazing. So to do this, go into formats, then ensure that Pro RAW and resolution control is toggled on. And I highly recommend setting the Pro RAW format right here to JPEG XL lossless. Nothing else, because JPEG XL lossless is the best container format and it's not even close. You essentially get the full image quality, yet a huge 30 to 50% reduction in file size. So it's the best of both worlds. You can store more high quality photos while taking up less precious iPhone storage space. So now if you go into the camera app, bringing it up here, you can tap the top left-hand corner and you get the format options of RAW and the resolution control here. And now that this is here, you can think of it as an emergency detail button. If you're capturing a special moment and want the most detail from your iPhone, or if you're just in low lighting, just quickly switch over to RAW 48 megapixel mode and it will often save your photo. So now we've got the settings right, I'm going to jump onto the laptop and show you my editing workflow. And also real quick, I'd love if you could drop a like if you're enjoying this video so far and comment the code word edit if this tutorial is helping you so far. I really appreciate your support. Now, moving on to the editing workflow. Here is the fun part. So the photo was shot with the right settings now. It's sharp, exposure is fine, colors are fine, it works. But this is the same photo after editing with a simple workflow. And the best part is that if your settings are right, which they should be now, editing becomes fast and almost impossible to mess up. So to edit the photos, I will be using Lightroom here. And you can also use the free Lightroom mobile app on your iPhone to follow along. They both work. And here's my overall editing rule. You don't want to fix the photo, but instead you want to bring out the best from the photo. So in this order, I focus on the number 1, composition, then number 2, color, number 3, light, and then number 4, detail. So on screen and following those 4 steps, first we want to manage the composition. So what I'm going to do is bring up the crop tool. And because this is a beautiful landscape photo, I want to go 16:9 and just really accentuate like the landscape look of this photo with this ratio. That looks good to me. Then before any other edit, I always set a color direction first, and this keeps my edits consistent and stops me from over editing. So for this, I'm using one of my own editing presets I specifically developed for iPhones. But of course, you can use any preset that you like. You don't need to use mine. And also you don't need presets to edit well either, but I find what it does, it gives me a clean, neutral starting point in a couple of clicks, saving me a lot of time. And so what we're going to do is click into presets here and use one of my presets. So using my presets here, what I usually do is scroll through them and see what looks nice. You can see that quite a few of these do actually work quite well depending on the vibe that you're trying to go for. Once you apply the preset, what I'll do is I'll come into the sliders here and I'll just slightly adjust it to fine tune for the photo that we're going for. So exposure, I'll bump up slightly. I think I'll bump down the contrast to bring out the mountain. The highlights, I think I'll bring up because I want the sky to just pop a little bit more. I hate that word pop, but I feel like it's quite convenient to use. So shadows, I'll bring up as well, just so you can see a bit more detail. And then essentially I won't mess around too much with the base preset because it works so well already, but I'm already really happy with this shot. So this is the classic like iPhone type look, you know, straight off the camera, but adding that very simple editing workflow, as you saw, within a minute, you get a drastically more professional, more profound looking image. I'll quickly do this again for a different photo. So this one here, again, very basic type of iPhone photo. But what we'll do is use the crop again, because we're going to first fix the composition. So tapping C, I'm going to use the rule of thirds and have the Ferrari in one of the lower end of the box here. So just like that. So it's more dialed in and focused on the actual subject, which is the car with a beautiful background. Hit enter. And then now we're going to do the exact same thing, opening up the presets and playing around with the looks. So this time I'm going to use the S2 preset pack. And you can see there's a lot of styles. I like this one. I also quite like, let's see, this one looks really nice, 208. So let's go for this one here, 10. And one of the things that I haven't shown you yet that I use quite often is if you go onto the right here and create a new mask and select subject, Lightroom does a really good job selecting the main subject, which is the car, as you saw right here. And then you can actually play around with the main subject outside of the entire frame and photo, I mean. So currently the Ferrari is really overexposed and quite white. So bring down the exposure a little bit, as you can see, and immediately it gives a different effect. The contrast, I would bring slightly down. The highlights, because it's kind of overblown already, I'd bring slightly down as well. And the shadows, I will probably bump up so you can see more detail in the rims and stuff like that. The whites I will leave as is. But as you can see, like just from that minor change, if I hide this, so if we hide this mask right there, you can see the difference now. And if I unhide it, you can see the big difference that it makes. So that is another tool that I love using, that I highly recommend that you use too. And now the last one that I'll show you is some nighttime photography. So this was also shot on an iPhone, which I am pretty surprised about because personally, I think it's a beautiful shot. Same thing, I'll probably use the 16:9 ratio because I think it's a very cinematic type looking shot. So let's use that. And then going into the presets again, the presets are so useful in just creating that consistent look immediately without much time at all. But I really like the first one in this case. And honestly, like I wouldn't even change that much here. It's already a very cinematic base. I think I love the look already. I'll bump down the contrast to bring out some detail. The highlights I will probably leave there because I like that sort of overexposed look. And the other amazing tool is, of course, curves, but also a lot of people don't use the color mixer tool. So if I just want to, fix up the reds here, for example, I'll click the red, change the hue slightly, and it'll only change the red hue. I might, bring down the luminance or bring up the luminance, depending on what I'm trying to go for, or even the blue here. Like, let's change the hue of the blue in this entire shot. Let's make it more like of a softer blue, and the saturation, let's bump it up. But, as it is, you go from a typical iPhone shot to something way more cinematic. So you can see the before and after there. I've also lifted out some of the blacks and the details. And this is where pro raw shots will really come in handy, because if you just took a normal shot and it's this dark, you're not going to be able to lift out the details, as you can see here. So if I zoom in here, you wouldn't be able to lift out the details from that tree. If I go back, the darks will be very dark. You won't be able to lift out that detail. But with a pro raw shot like this, you can save the photo and really bring out a lot of life from the photo. So as you can see, the editing workflow is very fast. It's very simple, just using those 4 steps right there. And then also using a preset that you like changes the game completely. So now we have these settings and editing nailed. Next are the important tips, tricks, and shooting habits that will level everything up and have people questioning whether you really did take that photo on an iPhone. So first is properly using live photos. Most people leave this on and never actually use it properly. But what you're going to do is, if you're shooting movement, like waterfalls, waves, traffic, or people walking, just hold your phone steady and take the shot with live photos on. Now, later in photos, what you're going to do is tap live up the top left-hand corner here, and then you're going to tap long exposure for the waterfall shot. So once it loads, you can see that it creates this really nice, creamy, smooth look for the waterfall, and it just completely transforms the photo. This is best done on a tripod, but if you have steady hands, it works too. And there's other functions you can use with live photos too. You can also use bounce, for example, and then it gives you an animated photo, as you can see here. And this is just a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of utility in it. You can even select multiple live photos and then turn them into a short video. It's quite underrated, so it's definitely worth leaving live photos on. The next tip that a lot of people miss is panoramic mode isn't just actually for wide shots. A big tip is to turn your phone sideways and use pano vertically. So I'll show you what I mean. So going into photos and then swiping over to panoramic. So you actually don't need to just shoot the panoramic as a horizontal shot. You can actually go turn it vertically and then shoot upwards. So what this is going to do is you're going to get insane resolution and a look you simply can't get with just the ultra wide lens. It's perfect for tall buildings, cliffs, trees, or anything with strong vertical lines. Just move slowly and keep it steady, and you'll get an even more breathtaking vertical shot than the ultra wide lens. Next is properly exposing iPhone shots, because most bad iPhone photos are just simply overexposed. So when taking a photo, all you need to do is tap the focus and then drag the sun icon down about twice, 2 stops usually, and then lock the exposure by tapping and holding until the AEAF lock comes on. And what this is going to do is it's going to stop iPhone from second guessing your shot. And with this simple change, it prevents blown highlights, preserves sky detail, and makes photos look more intentional. And then for high movement photos, the easiest way to capture that is to hold the shutter, then pull to the left. So like this, hold it down, then pull to the left. Now it is taking burst photos. Then if you go into the photo here, you can see burst 43 photos taken, and you can select the most ideal shot that you like. So once you use this, it honestly comes in so clutch, especially when your partner is asking you to take photos of them. Then they can't complain that you haven't taken enough photos with the burst mode. Next is a quick pro tip for getting more natural colors instantly without even editing. So iPhone cameras tend to skew warm and slightly yellow-green by default, and this is how you can counterbalance this. So go into the camera and then tap the top left or top right-hand corner, I should say. And then with this, you want to use the natural color base. So if you scroll through, you can see the different colors. Use the natural color base, and this is how you want to set it up. So you want to specifically use tone -25, so drag it to tone -25, use color -02, and palette at 80. I've also dragged the intensity slightly down, as you can see here. And then once that's done, exit back out to save it as default. And now every photo that you take is automatically color corrected. It's not meant to replace editing, but it does make your everyday shots that much nicer to the eye. So if all of that has helped, let me know in the comments with the code word EDIT so I know you made it to the very end. And if you love tech and cameras, make sure to sub for more. If you want to keep going, I've linked to my other iPhone photography video here. And then as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.